Dear students, welcome to a fresh session of teleteaching.
Before I start teaching you anything, let me ask you a very simple question. The question is, who is not afraid of examinations? The answer is very obvious. Everyone, right from the top 10% of students to the bottom, everyone is afraid of examinations. Just you think of the night before the examination, the feeling of trepidation, the anxiety, the anguish, the apprehension, it almost keeps you awake throughout the night. Why? Because the brilliant students, the precocious students, they are afraid of examination because they always have the fear of getting less than 95%, which is a bad performance for them. And the poor students, naturally, they have got the perennial fear of getting flogged. So, now today, my dear students, I am going to teach you a very delightful prose written by a very famous person. The topic is On Examinations by Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill is a very popular person and he does not need any introduction. He was a British statesman, he was an army officer and a prolific writer, but at the same time I will do immense injustice to this great man if I do not say that he was the Prime Minister of England twice. So, now Winston Churchill, he is narrating his own experiences here at an examination hall in the Harrow Public School. Now, what does Winston Churchill tell about examinations? He says that students normally have to take examination almost for a sizable years of their life. When it comes to narrating his own experience, Winston Churchill said, I had scarcely passed my 12th birthday when I entered the inhospitable regions of examination through which for the next 7 years I was destined to journey. These examinations were a great trial to me. The subjects which were dearest to the examiners were almost invariably those I fancied least. I would have liked to have been examined in history, poetry and writing essays. So, you just imagine a small boy barely 12 years old taking an examination. So, Winston Churchill calls it the inhospitable region. Inhospitable means a very unfriendly, a very hostile zone, and unfortunately each student has to journey for a number of years through this particular zone. So, Churchill said I had to journey for 7 years. Now, then Churchill spoke about the trials and tribulations that a student has to go through inside the examination hall or while doing preparation for the examinations. Now, what was the reason? Why examinations are so difficult? The reason is very simple. The subjects which a student wants to be examined in are not the subjects which the teacher wants to examine the students. So, Churchill, he was very good at history, he was good at poetry and he was good at writing essays. But the examiners on the other hand were partial to Latin and mathematics and their will prevailed. Moreover, the questions they asked on both these subjects were almost invariably those to which I was unable to suggest a satisfactory answer. I should have liked to be asked to say what I knew. They always tried to ask what I did not know. So, the examiners, they had a fascination for Latin and mathematics. As you know, Latin is a classical language and mathematics is always tough for everyone. So, the examiners, they were very keen on examining Churchill in Latin and mathematics, whereas Churchill was very keen on taking the examination in subjects like history, poetry writing and essay writing. So, Churchill here, I have underlined this particular sentence, I should have liked to be asked to say what I knew, they always tried to ask what I did not know. So, the examiners were very keen to expose his ignorance, not to show his knowledge. So, when I would have willingly displayed my knowledge, they sought to expose my ignorance. This sort of treatment had only one result: I didn't do well in the examination. So, this is a very precarious, this is a very pathetic situation. The examiners were hell bent on exposing his ignorance, and Churchill was very keen to prove a point or two by showing his knowledge, but Churchill didn't get any scope, and as a result Churchill didn't do well in the examination. This was especially true of my entrance examination to Harrow. The headmaster, Dr. Weldon, however, took a broad-minded view of my Latin pose. He showed discernment in judging my general ability. This was more remarkable because I was found unable to answer a single question in Latin paper. So, Churchill faced this situation when he was taking his examination, entrance examination at Harrow Public School. Dear students, Harrow Public School, like Doon Public School in India, is one of the illustrious institutions. Only the children of all great people, they get a chance to study there. So, getting a seat at Harrow was a matter of pride and was a matter of privilege. So, when Churchill couldn't do well, the headmaster, however, was not very conservative. He knew that Churchill had not done well in Latin, but somehow he depended on his own discernment. That means he depended on his own judgment, okay? And he just, even though he didn't find a single answer to the on Latin paper, he somehow became a bit lenient while evaluating Churchill's answer. Then what did Churchill do there? He took the examination for 2 hours. What exactly Churchill had done in the examination hall? So, this is what Churchill had done. This is Churchill's view. I wrote my name at the top of the page. I wrote down the number of question 1, and after much reflections I put a bracket around it. Thereafter, I couldn't think of anything connected with it that was either relevant or true. Incidentally, there arrived from nowhere a particular blot and several smudges. This was what the young boy did. A confused, flabbergasted, a boy in deep anguish when he saw that he didn't know the answer to a single question. He simply wrote his own name at the top. Then he just gave question number 1, put a bracket around it, and after that the boy broke down inside the examination hall. He started crying. He pressed his pen on the paper and there was a tiny speck of ink, and when tears started falling on the page, naturally the ink started spreading down itself all over the paper. So, there are blots and smudges all over the page, which Dr. Weldon saw, and Dr. Weldon could immediately imagine the predicament of this young boy. So, I gazed for 2 whole hours at this sad spectacle, and then the merciful ushers collected my piece of foolscap with all others and carried it up to the headmaster's table. It was from these slender indications of scholarship that Dr. Weldon drew the conclusion that I was worthy to pass into Harrow. So, the boy cried there. He didn't know the answer to a single question. He stood there gazing at the ceiling, maybe counting the fans or electric lights. Okay. For 2 hours he sat there. It was a very sad sight. Okay. Finally, the attendant came to his relief. He collected, he called it my piece of foolscap. Why? Because Churchill had practically written nothing on that paper. So, the attendant came and collected his paper along with others papers and took it to the headmaster's table. It was from these slender indications means very thin indications, okay, very thin signs of scholarship. That means the moment Mr. Weldon saw Churchill's answer paper, he could immediately guess that the boy was terribly confused inside the examination hall and that the boy had written nothing, but he drew a conclusion you can say which later became a part of the history. He considered Churchill worthy to pass into Harrow. It is very much to his credit. It showed that he was a man capable of looking beneath the surface of things, a man not dependent upon paper manifestations. I have always had the greatest regards for him. So now Churchill always feels indebted to.
Dr. Weldon.
So it's to his credit. That means it is to whose credit? It is to the credit of
Dr. Weldon.
Weldon was a kind of person who could see beneath. Beneath means under, beneath the surface of things. He was not a man who was dependent upon paper manifestations. Paper manifestations means whatever you write on paper, you call it paper manifestations. Churchill says, I have always had the highest or the greatest regard for him. For whom? For Mr. Weldon. Why? Because Mr. Weldon gave him a chance to study at Harrow Public School. In consequence of his decision, I was in due course placed in the third or the lowest division of the fourth or bottom. The names of the new boys were printed in the school list in alphabetical order, and as my correct name, Spencer Churchill, began with an S, I gained no more advantage from the alphabet than from the wider sphere of letters. So finally, Churchill got a scope. He took admission at Harrow Public School, and it was all because of the decision taken by Mr. Somervell. And Churchill was placed in a, almost you can say, bottom section, not on any one of the top sections. He was placed in a bottom section. What was the reason? Because he had done terribly in his Latin paper. And Churchill's name, okay, started with Spencer, Spencer Churchill, that was his name. So he didn't get any kind of privilege from the letter. So Churchill's name in the attendance sheet was always again at the bottom. So that again became a very difficult thing for Churchill. I was in fact only 2 from the bottom of the whole school, and these 2, I regret to say, disappeared almost immediately through illness or some other cause. So his name was at the bottom. There were only 2 more students who were below him, but maybe due to that humiliation, these 2 students, they didn't take admission, showing some flimsy ground. So the Harrow custom of calling the roll is different from that of Eton. At Eton, the boys stand in a cluster, lift their hats when their names are called. At Harrow, they file past a master in the schoolyard and answer one by one. So now let us come to the morning assembly, the teachers taking the roll call. So what was Harrow's custom, making roll calls? So now at Harrow, the students, they used to walk along a line, okay. But at Eton, the students, they used to gather round the teacher, and when the teacher was calling them by their name, they used to lift their hat and wish their teacher. But that was not the system at Harrow. My position was therefore revealed in its somewhat invidious humility. So now Churchill was very humble, okay. He was the last boy, and now let us come to a very interesting part. It was the year 1887, and his father, Lord Randolph Churchill, had only resigned his position as a leader of the House of Commons. Remember, leader of the House of Commons and Chancellor of the Exchequer. He still towered in the forefront of politics. So his father was not an ordinary man. So we always have expectations that worthy son of a worthy father. Naturally, when Amitabh Bachchan was a great actor, the people, they thought that Abhishek in course of time would be another great actor. Sachin Tendulkar was a great cricketer. Naturally, people expected Arjun Tendulkar to be a great cricketer. So Churchill's father, since he was the leader of the House of Commons, people also expected Churchill to be another great person like his father. And when they saw Churchill at the bottom, these people, they were disappointed. So I am coming to that part. In consequence, large number of visitors of both sexes used to wait on the school steps in order to see me march by, and I frequently heard the irreverent comment, why he is last of all. And because of this, almost you can say thousands of people, they used to come and just gather around the school compound just to have a glimpse of the son of their dearest leader. So I have told you, if the father is a great man, we always have the expectations that the son has to be equally great. So these people, they expected Churchill to be at the top, the first boy, almost leading the queue. But what did they find? They were disappointed. They found him at the bottom, and that was why Churchill had to hear the irreverent means disrespectful comment. These people, they were musing, look, the son of our popular leader, why he is last of all. Dear students, I have told you Churchill was a prolific writer and his command over English was really enviable. So, in the course of my reading out the text to you and explaining the text to you, you must have come across a number of difficult words. So, now let us discuss a very few difficult words indeed. So, one word which we find in the very first sentence, that is inhospitable. The meaning of inhospitable is unfriendly. Unfriendly. The man is inhospitable in his behavior. Then there is one word, invariably. Invariably means something that happens always. So, invariably I feel uncomfortable while talking to my teacher. Invariably. I feel invariably uncomfortable while talking to my teacher. Incidentally. Incidentally means by the way. Incidentally, I met the boy in front of a tea stall. Incidentally means by the way. Then blots and smudges, okay, it is not exactly a phrase. So, drops of tears that have made stains on paper. I have told you Churchill started crying inside the examination hall because he did not know the answer to a single question. So, his predicament was, or state of mind, predicament may be a tough word for you. Churchill's state of mind was absolutely precarious, he was devastated. So, he started crying. So, with the help of because the pen was pressed on the paper, it created a tiny speck, a small dot, and which later on expanded itself, okay, became bigger and bigger, okay, because of the tears, okay, tears falling from his eyes, and almost the entire page was disfigured with those smudges. So, stains, okay, dots and smudges. Then it was a spectacle, a boy sitting in the examination hall and not being able to answer a single question. It is a sight, okay. Spectacle means a sight. Churchill created a spectacle there, okay. My neighbor created a spectacle early in the morning when he was bargaining with the vegetable vendor. Usher, it means attendant, the people who were in charge of receiving the answer paper. Discernment, judgment, okay. I have told you Dr. Weldon showed great discernment and he allowed Churchill to take admission at Harrow Public School. So, discernment means judgment. Invidious humility, remember invidious humility, it means the humility or the modesty which is unenviable. So, here you can find actually Churchill has used it to just show, almost Churchill is very sarcastic about the whole system of examination, the system through which the students are examined. So, even though Churchill was the last boy and the people were they felt completely at loss to realize why Churchill was standing at the last, but Churchill did not feel offended. So, you call it unenviable humility. Then irreverent comment, irreverent means disrespectful. So, these are some of the tough words, okay, and I have given you the meanings. Again I have also told you the meanings of word like slender, which is thin, okay, and a few other words also. While explaining the text to you, I have given you the meanings of a few other difficult words. Then let us come to the most important part. This part is called questions for comprehension. Dear students, as +2 students, you will get a passage from which you have to search or you have to find out the correct answer. Now, look, you have got a word limit, prescribed word limit. You have to answer each and every question within 30 words. So, now you cannot go beyond those 30 words. So, keeping the word limit in mind, we have to make the answer very precise, very correct and very factual. You cannot afford any grammatical error. So, here I have not given the complete, I have not written complete sentences here, just I have given you the clues to find the answer. So, the question number 1 is, how old was the author when he took his first examination? Answer, he was barely 12 years old. Now, you can open your own text, okay? When I am teaching you, you can open your own text and look for the answers of these questions. So, let me repeat the question once again. How old was the author when he took his first examination? The answer is, he was barely 12 years old. Question number 2. Why does the author coin the phrase inhospitable region of examination? Its answer is, because the system is never student friendly. Question number 3. How does the pattern of questions differ from students as well as the teacher's perspectives? The answer is, so here this is an inferential question, this is not a direct question. So, here in this case you have to write something of your own. The students expect questions from the subjects they are comfortable with, whereas the examiners ask the questions from the subject of their choice. So, this is the answer to this question. This answer I have not derived directly from the question. Then the fourth question is, which subject did the author wish to be examined in? It is a simple question and the answer is again very simple, history, poetry and essay writing, I have told you. Then the next question is, in which subjects did the examiners want to test the students? Again the answer is very simple, Latin and mathematics. Next question, who was Dr. Weldon? The answer is, you all know Dr. Weldon was the headmaster of Harrow Public School when Churchill was taking his entrance examination. If you just write Dr. Weldon was the headmaster of Harrow Public School, then the question will become almost incomplete, because not all the time he was the headmaster. He was the headmaster for a period of time and fortunately Churchill was taking his entrance examination during that period. Then the next question is, why did Churchill have the highest respect for Dr. Weldon? So, now the answer is, you all know, because Dr. Weldon knew performance in examination is not the only criterion to judge the ability of a student. I have told you Dr. Weldon, he had great discerning ability. So, he gave Churchill the benefit of doubt. So, he allowed Churchill to take admission at Harrow Public School. The next question, what did the author write on his answer script? Again you have to write it as Churchill had written it. He just wrote question number 1 indicating the number of the question. So, he wrote 1 indicating the number of the question and he put a bracket around it. So, it is a very simple question, a direct question, and I have told you a direct question always deserves a direct answer. Now, even if the question does not contain 30 words, you do not have to worry over that. You have to give a clear cut, a very concise answer and a factually correct answer to every question. Why was the author placed in the third or the lowest division of the fourth or bottom form? Because he was not able to answer any question from Latin paper. So, what was the reaction? We have discussed this answer. What was the reaction of the people on seeing Churchill at the end of the queue during the call at Harrow? They felt disappointed to see the son of a popular statesman at the end of the queue. So, we have almost dealt with this particular aspect very extensively. So, that is why I do not have to tell more about it. So, I have taught you the first unit of on examinations. I have I have told you everything about Churchill's reaction, Churchill's point of view, why Churchill was very critical of examinations. But before starting the second unit, let me make a quick recap of the things I had taught you. Churchill took his first public examination at the age of 12. Churchill was very good at history, writing poems and writing essays, but Churchill's weaknesses were Latin and mathematics. But unfortunately, the examiners were very keen on examining Churchill in mathematics and Latin. So, finally, what happened when Churchill took his entrance test, he nearly wrote nothing on his Latin paper. However, the headmaster of that school, Dr. Weldon, he was a very conscientious person, a man having the power of making a very historical judgment. He somehow, or perhaps rather, knew Churchill. What did he find in the paper? He found a few blots and smudges caused due to incessant crying, yes, inside the examination hall by a small kid, a helpless small kid crying, pouring his anguish, pouring his frustration out on a placid piece of paper in the examination hall. So, he took pity on Churchill. He allowed him to take admission at Harrow. But Churchill's problems did not come to an end there. Churchill's name, even though he just Mr. Weldon just gave him the permission to study at Harrow, but Churchill could not supersede the people who had done better than him in examination. So, his name unfortunately remained at the bottom. And then there was that very almost unusual process of roll call followed at Harrow Public School, where the students they used to file past a teacher in a queue, and the queue almost comprises of students belonging to or ranging from the top category to the bottom category. So, Churchill, as evidently he was at the bottom, a group of onlookers, curious onlookers who came to see Churchill, they were disappointed because his father was a very popular statesman and they wanted Churchill to be somewhere at the top. When they saw Churchill at the bottom, okay, almost towards the end of the queue, or rather the last boy very meekly lifting his hat and wishing his teacher, the people they were disappointed, and some people also spoke or gave certain irreverent remarks, that means disrespectful remarks. So, this is what we have learnt in unit 1. So, now unit 2 deals with more such experiences of Churchill at Harrow. Now, let us study Churchill's version, then I will interpret his version to you. I continued in this unpretentious situation for nearly a year. However, by being so long in the lowest form, I gained an immense advantage over the cleverer boys. They all went on to learn Latin and Greek and splendid things like that, but I was taught English. So, without having any kind of pretension, Churchill knew what exactly he was, what kind of student he was. He had to tolerate all these comments from the people and he had to continue at the bottom at least for 1 year. But Churchill says, however, by being so long in the lowest form, I gained an immense advantage over the cleverer boys. Dear students, every dark cloud has a silver lining. The people who are optimists, they always look for hope. Now, Churchill here is telling you about the advantages of being at the bottom, the advantages which Churchill had over the cleverer boys. They all went on to learn Latin and Greek and splendid things like that, but I was taught English. We are considered such dunces that we could learn only English. Mr. Somerville, a most delightful man to whom my debt is great, was charged with the duty of teaching stupid boys the most disregarded thing, namely to write mere English. Now, remember, this is the plight of vernacular, okay? This is the plight of learning your own mother tongue. I do not know why the people they have got always somehow a kind of, it will be, I am not going to call it a kind of disrespect, but people sometimes undermine the importance of vernacular. So, the students who were, because Churchill's mother tongue was English, so the students who were allowed or the students who learnt English there at school, they were invariably the dunces. Dunces means stupid students, not very bright students. But Mr. Somervell, he was a delightful teacher, he was a wonderful teacher, a great teacher, and Churchill, he has written here, my debt is great. That means Churchill had always remained indebted, had always remained grateful to this person, because Somervell was charged with the duty of teaching the stupidest boys the most disregarded things, namely to write mere English. So, what was Somervell teaching? Somervell taught them how to write English. So, now how did Somervell teach them how to write English? Now, the question that may come to your mind, English was certainly their mother tongue. So, what was the need to teach them English? Now, the thing is, as you know, a language almost when you speak it, you almost speak a different kind of language, and when you write it, you write a different kind of language. The structure of the language always plays a very important role. Now, the person who write a particular language, at that time they are very conscious. Okay. They try to avoid any kind of mistake. Okay. Mistakes in any kind of writing is considered a sin. So, that was why, to improve the writing, Somervell was teaching them writing skills, because all these boys knew how to speak English. Okay. He was simply teaching them writing skills. Somervell knew how to do it. He taught it as no one else has ever taught it. Not only did we learn the English parsing thoroughly, but we also practiced English analysis. Mr. Somervell had a system of his own. So, what exactly was Somervell teaching the students? He was teaching the students English parsing. Parsing means dividing the sentence into different parts of speech. Okay. Parsing was a part of traditional grammar long time back. Even when I was a student, I had not learnt parsing, but say before 30 years or sorry before 40 years, parsing was religiously taught to the school students. Okay. So, now Somervell, he used to teach the students parsing, and he used to teach them clause analysis. As you know, a sentence, sometimes a simple sentence has got only one clause, but a compound sentence or even a complex sentence, normally a complex sentence has got several clauses. So, now each clause has got its own autonomy, each clause has got its own identity. So, Somervell had a unique system of teaching the students clause analysis and parsing. So, what was Somervell's system of teaching clause analysis and parsing? Let us hear it from Churchill. He took a fairly long sentence, broke it up into components by means of black, red, blue and green inks. Subject, verb, objects, relative clauses, conditional clauses, conjunctive and disjunctive clauses, each had its color and its bracket. It was a kind of drill. So, that was how Somervell did it. He took a long sentence and broke the sentence into pieces. Okay. He created components. Okay. He identified those components using different kind of inks. So, Somervell taught them clause analysis. Somervell had a very unique way of teaching the students. Somervell knew that these students were not very bright. So, just to make them feel at home, just to make them comprehend, just to make them grasp the basic rules of grammar, Somervell took the help of ink, different colors of ink, red, blue, green. These are the three colors that Churchill had mentioned here. So, with the help of these inks, Somervell divided a very complex structure into different clauses, and at the same time he also taught them about noun, about adjective, about verb, about pronoun and all other things. Okay. Interjections, conjunctions. So, Somervell taught the students clause analysis as well as parsing. So, it was a kind of drill. Dear students, you just remember your school days. In the morning, sometimes you have to do drill in an open field. Drill means when you are made to practice something, it becomes a kind of drill. So, Somervell made it a kind of drill. Nowadays, even the students who are taking IIT examination, the students who are taking JEE Main or even this NEET, learning for them is a kind of drill. So, if you just practice a few question papers rigorously, it may so happen some of them may be repeated, or you may get a few identical questions. So, now practice makes a man perfect. So, that is why it was the drill of Somervell, his unique way of teaching, which helped Churchill learn the rules of English grammar very quickly and very easily. We did it almost daily. As I remained in the third, fourth, 3 times as long as anyone else, I heard 3 times as much of it. I learnt it thoroughly. Thus, I got into my bones the essential structure of the ordinary British sentence, which is a noble thing. So, they almost Somervell taught them purging and clause analysis every day. Okay. We did it daily. I remember my school days when in Odia schools we used to learn Panikya, 2 ke 2, 2 dune 4. So, it was a kind of habit. So, now almost even at this late age, I almost never struggle to say if I multiply, or if somebody asks me if you multiply 6 into 23 what is the result, I can instantly tell. Okay. So, how it is possible? Because we have learnt this particular thing, multiplication chart, multiplication chart through drills. Okay. So, as I remained in the third, fourth, 3 times, he was there for a very long time, longer than anyone else. Okay. I had 3 times as much of it. So, he learnt it for 3 successive years. I learnt these things thoroughly. What did he learn thoroughly? He learnt the rules of English grammar thoroughly. So, almost when he went to another section, he almost had become a master. So, thus I got into my bones, this is the phrase got into my bones, that means he was very comfortable. He had known fairly well the essential structure of the ordinary British sentence. Structure, okay. Structure of a sentence, you know, structure means how different units they are bound to one another, okay. How they are interwoven. So, this interweaving, okay, through interweaving we create a sentence. So, this the very act of interweaving is called a structure. So, this is a noble thing. Learning English structure thoroughly, it is a noble thing. Then I have underlined these lines, and when in after years my school fellows who had won prizes and distinctions for writing such beautiful Latin poetry and pithy Greek epigrams had to come down again to common English to learn living or make their way, I did not feel myself at any disadvantage. Years later, the so called brilliant students, the students who were far ahead of Churchill, the students who had won distinction, the students who had received prizes from the headmaster for writing wonderful Latin poetry and pithy Greek epigrams. Pithy means very short, very precise, and Greek epigram means short, intelligent observations. Greek epigrams, they had to come again to learn common English. So, these people, they were far superior to Churchill, okay. But during all these days, what did they do? They learnt 2 alien languages, they learnt foreign languages, okay. They learnt Latin and they learnt Greek. They were comfortable with Latin and Greek, but during all these days they had neglected their own mother tongue, that is English. So, when they are capable of writing very concise, very intelligent sentences, okay, both in Greek and Latin, but they did not have a very good command over their own mother tongue. But now you need to learn English for your own living. To earn your own bread, you need English. So, that was why at a later stage these students, they started learning English, and at that time Churchill had a distinct edge, he had a distinct advantage over these students, because what they started learning later Churchill had already learnt those things. So, this is the thing. So, that is why Churchill says, naturally I am biased in favor of boys learning English. I am biased in favor of boys learning English. Churchill, he always, because he himself was very good at English, that was why he somehow felt inclined towards teaching English in classroom or encouraging the students to learn English. Now, I would make them all learn English. Now, Churchill was not a teacher, he was a statesman. I have told you he was the Prime Minister of the country on 2 occasions. So, Churchill, that is why he says, I would make them, even though if I would make them, that means if at all I became a teacher, I would make them all learn English, and then I would let the clever ones learn Latin as an honor and Greek as a trait. Now, remember how practical Churchill was. You just this observation, you just think of this observation. Now, basically every student has to be taught the basic things. Okay. After learning those basic things, you can take him a step forward. Churchill here is very critical, or rather in his essay he is very critical of the system adopted in the entrance tests in different schools. Now, you ask the students basic things, you encourage them to learn basic things, and development should take place gradually. So, now as believed by Churchill, English should be taught to the students, okay, during the primary class. They should have a very good grasp over English language. Okay. For in say in our context, Odia should be taught, okay. Later on English should be taught. That is what, this is what Churchill believes. Okay. So, Latin as an, so Latin can be taught as an honor, okay, and Greek as a treat. Greek can be taught as a kind of, you almost you can say, a pleasant experience. That means, I have told you Greek language is no longer used nowadays, even Latin also has become as good as a dead language. Okay. But during Churchill's time, it was a fashion to learn Latin and Greek. You just think in, so I have told you Latin and Greek, both these languages are classical languages. Can you name one classical language in India, a language in which many books have been written, even our Vedas have been written in that language? Very obvious, you know the answer, it is Sanskrit. So, now Churchill says these classical languages should be taught, but they should be taught later. But Churchill again said, I would whip them and whip them hard for not knowing English. So, a student, that means someone staying in England, he cannot afford to not know English. Okay. English should be taught to everyone staying, every English or every British citizen. So, that is Churchill's take. So, this is the second unit of on examination. Okay. So, let us again as usual discuss a few difficult words. Now, unpretentious. Unpretentious means modest without trying to impress someone. The people who try to show off, they are pretentious. The people who behave as they are unpretentious. Then there is yet another word, dunce. Dunce is a slow learner, a person who learns very slowly. A dunce is a person who feels disadvantaged, okay, while learning. So, those categories of students are called dunces. Then parsing, I have explained this thing to you. Parsing, dividing a sentence on the basis of parts of speech. So, you have to divide a sentence on the basis of parts of speech, this is called parsing. Then pithy, I have told you brief, very concise. Okay. So, Churchill's friends, they were writing pithy passages, pithy sentences. Epigram, short and witty, very intelligent, but very concise expressions. Treat, special pleasure. My friend gave me a treat at a hotel. So, these are the difficult words, and there are many more. So, now let us start doing those questions for comprehension question. So, now the question, I will ask you the question, and again I will request you to look for the answers. Even though I am giving out the answer here, I am reading out the answer to you, still you people start looking for the answer all by yourself. First question, here goes the first question. Which subject was Churchill taught for 1 year at Harrow? I have not written a complete sentence. The full sentence is Churchill was taught English for 1 year at Harrow. I simply gave you the clue, English. Second question, why was he taught English alone? The answer here is because boys like him were considered such dunces that they could only learn English. I did not write here Churchill was taught English alone because boys like him were considered such dunces that they could learn only English, because this is something for you to derive. You have to derive this part from the question itself. One component of your answer most of the time lies hidden inside the question. An intelligent student, he just locates that component, okay, and he just puts it, uses it in his own answer. So, this is what you have to do. Remember, comprehension question 2 marks, okay, you have to write it in 30 words, but you have to write a very concise and factual answer. Then the next question, who was Mr. Somervell? Again I have told a lot about Mr. Somervell. I have made the answer very short here. Mr. Somervell was Churchill's grammar teacher at Harrow. So, he was Churchill's grammar teacher. He was teaching English grammar to the dull students at Harrow. You can write also Mr. Somervell was teaching English grammar to the dull students at Harrow. What kind of disposition did Mr. Somervell have? Now, this is a sentence I have lifted from the book. Somervell was a delightful person. He was a wonderful person. Okay. Somervell was a delightful person. Next, what technique did Mr. Somervell adopt to teach parsing and clause analysis to dull students? Again, we have dealt with this particular thing for a very long time. Somervell, and here goes the answer. Somervell had the habit of taking a fairly long sentence and breaking it into clauses. He made the task easier by identifying each component using different colors of ink. So, again all these answers are there in your book. Okay. You do not have to do anything exceptional. You have to find out the answer from your own book. Then the next question is, what advantage did Churchill have over his intelligent batchmates due to his exposure to English language? So, what advantage did Churchill have over the so called bright students, intelligent students, because Churchill was taught English for a long time, fairly long time? The answer is, when his bright batchmates had to learn English language after so many years for their profession, Churchill was comfortably placed with a good command over the language. So, when they needed exposure to English language just for the safety of their own profession, Churchill was very comfortably placed. Then there is one more component which you may get, that is vocabulary. It normally, this component comes in question number, this is question number 3. That means, you will be given an onsen passage. From the onsen passage you will be given a difficult word, a few difficult words, and you have to write those antonyms of or synonyms of those difficult words. So, this is inhospitable, again it is hospitable, discernment, imbecility, stupidity, irreverent, reverent or respectful, dunces, genius. And finally, let me sum up. Examination is not the only criterion to judge the merit of a student. The system has to be revamped and made more student friendly. Question patterns should be designed in such a manner so as to bring out the innate creativity within a student. A comprehensive evaluation of the strength as well as the weaknesses of the student is what the teachers should keep in mind while designing the questions for a test. The merit of the student should not be undermined because of a single failure. Remember, success taps many doors before it finds the right one. This is Mindtech. Thank you very much.